Reading from the Message translation with inserts from the Transformation Study Bible, this chapter begins with another of Jesus' miracles of feeding many with next to nothing. Listen as we read from Mark chapter 8. At about this same time, he again found himself with a hungry crowd on his hands. He called his disciples together and said, "This crowd is breaking my heart. They have stuck with me for 3 days, and now they have nothing to eat. If I send them home hungry, they'll faint along the way. Some of them have come a long distance." His disciples responded, "What do you expect us to do about it? Buy food out here in the desert?" He asked, "How much bread do you have?" 7 loaves, they said. So Jesus told the crowd to sit down on the ground. After giving thanks, he took the 7 loaves, broke them into pieces, and gave them to the disciples so they could hand them out to the crowd. They also had a few fish. He pronounced a blessing over the fish and told his disciples to hand them out as well. The crowd ate its fill. 7 sacks of leftovers were collected. There were well over 4,000 at the meal. Then he sent them home. He himself went straight to the boat with his disciples and set out for Dalmanutha. When they arrived, the Pharisees came out and started in on him, badgering him to prove himself, wanting a sign from heaven. Jesus gave a deep sigh and then said, "Why does this generation clamor for a miraculous sign? I can tell you the truth, I will not give this generation any such sign." He then left them, got back into the boat, and headed for the other side of the lake. But the disciples forgot to pack a lunch. Except for a small single loaf of bread, there wasn't a crumb in the boat. Jesus warned, "Be very careful. Keep a sharp eye out for the contaminating yeast of Pharisees and the followers of Herod." Meanwhile, the disciples were finding fault with each other because they had forgotten to bring bread. Jesus overheard and said, "Why are you fussing because you forgot bread? Don't you see the point of all this? Don't you get it at all? Are you like the people who, having eyes, do not see, and having ears, do not hear? Remember the 5 loaves I broke for the 5,000? How many baskets of leftovers did you pick up?" They said, 12. "And the 7 loaves for the 4,000, how many bags full did you have left over?" 7. Jesus said, "Do you still not get it?" Now Jesus performs another miracle. Verse 22. They arrived at Bethsaida. Some people brought a sightless man and begged Jesus to give him a healing touch. Taking him by the hand, he led him out of the village. He put spit in the man's eyes, laid hands on him, and asked, "Do you see anything?" The man looked up. I see men. They look like walking trees." So Jesus laid hands on his eyes again. The man looked hard and realized that he had recovered perfect sight, saw everything in bright 20/20 focus. Jesus sent him straight home, telling him, "Don't enter the village on your way home." Jesus and his disciples headed out for the villages around Caesarea Philippi, and as they walked, he asked, "Who do the people say I am?" "Some say John the Baptizer," they said. "Others say Elijah. Still others say one of the prophets." He then asked, "And you? What are you saying about me? Who am I?" Peter gave the answer, "You are the Christ, the Messiah." Jesus warned them to keep it quiet, not to breathe a word of it to anyone. Jesus now tells his disciples of his coming death. Verse 31. Then Jesus began to tell them that the Son of Man must suffer many terrible things and be rejected by the elders, the leading priests, and the teachers of religious law. He would be killed, but 3 days later he would rise from the dead. He said this simply and clearly so they couldn't miss it, but Peter grabbed him in protest. The balance I'm reading from the Transformation Study Bible, verse 33. Turning and seeing his disciples wavering, wondering what to believe, Jesus confronted Peter. "Get away from me, Satan," he said. You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's. Calling the crowd to join his disciples, he said, "If any of you wants to be my follower, you must turn from your selfish ways, take up your cross, and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, and for the sake of the good news, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world, but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? If anyone is ashamed of me and my message in these adulterous and sinful days, the Son of Man will be ashamed of that person when he returns in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." May God add his blessing to this reading of his word. Amen.